I'm Getchin Share with HomesNet Realty, and I thank you for watching. And if this is your first time on this channel, please consider subscribing and click on the bell to be notified when I post new videos. In this episode of Let's Talk Real Estate, I will go over 20 questions, multiple choice questions, designed to help you pass the Florida real estate exam. Let's get right into it. Part 19, Planning, Zoning, and Environmental Hazards. 20 fill-in and multiple choice questions designed to help you pass the Florida state exam. This is part 19 of 20. We're almost there. The next part will be math, real estate math. Let's get started. Number one, a property owner may qualify for a blank if the owner can show the owner suffers a hardship. Well, a property owner may qualify for a variance if the owner can show that the person suffers a hardship. A variance is simply getting to do something in an area where it would not currently be authorized. The zoning will not currently authorize it. We'll discuss that further as we go along. Number two, a legal permission to continue a non-conforming use is called blank. Well, that's called a grandfather. So to be grandfathered into a zoning, meaning a person had, if you remember back in chapter 1, I believe we discussed that, or in part 1, we discussed that. Legal permission to continue a business in an area that was changed, where the zoning was recently changed. Well, an old business that was already currently there, let's say a zoning area was zoned for, let's say, commercial. And then subsequent to that, it was changed to residential. Well, theoretically speaking, the commercial business would not be able to function in a residential area. So therefore, the owner will ask for a variance, therefore being grandfathered into the new zoning. Number three, legal permission to change the use of a property within a zoning classification requires the owner to seek a blank blank. Well, a special exception. Number four, zoning is derived from the governmental authority originating from blank blank. Well, that would be police power. Police power is the government responsibility or authority to provide for our safety, welfare, and general well-being. That is simply what police power means. How does the government do that? If you remember, if you read the chapter, you remember they do that through, let's say, fire department, police department, road, all kind of safety. In this case, in real estate, also zoning and building codes. That's how the government provide. That's where the government derives its authority from, the police power, the theory of police power. Number five, a blank planning attitude refers essentially to government non-interference in private affairs, where competition and profits should prevail over the common good. Well, that term is a laissez-faire planning attitude refers to government non-interference into private affairs. Back in the 1800s up until probably 1926, the U.S. government had a laissez-faire attitude, meaning hands-off, permissive, unrestrictive, a lax attitude, a non-interventionist attitude where people who own property can do whatever they want with it. But that was changed in a case that went to the Supreme Court in 1926, where the government, the Supreme Court determines, well, since the government has the authority under the police power to protect, to provide for the welfare, safety, and well-being of the citizenry. Therefore, since we spend a whole lot of time indoors, well, how a person builds and where a person builds, what the government authorizes it to build, is in the purview of that. So laissez-faire, that's how things used to be, hands off. Number 6, blank is a measurement of the number of people or residential units allowed per unit of land, such as residents or employees per acre. And blank is the measurement of the extent to which land may be developed or used. Well, here, density is the measurement of the number of people or residential units per acre, whereas intensity is the extent to which the land may be developed or used. Number 7, residential zoning is based on blank. Well, residential zoning is based on density. Residential zoning is based on density, number of units or people per acre. Number 8, the tool used by government to implement the comprehensive plan is blank. Well, one of the tools that the government use is zoning. Also, well, one of the tools the government used to implement a comprehensive plan is zoning. Number 9, the restriction that does not allow a building permit to be issued until adequate infrastructure is provided is the requirement of the blank and blank. Well, that is referred to as the concurrency rules. So let's just say a developer is building, developing a site, a piece of land. Well, the developer first got to get the plan approved. And once it's been approved, every part of the process got to be approved. So concurrency rules, let me see what you have. How are you going to account for, let's say, your sewage, your sewer system? How about providing adequate potable water? How about proper electricity or energy use? All of those things got to be provided. The infrastructure for those things got to be there before the building permit is issued, or at least a plan for them must be developed. Number 10, a planned unit development is also referred to as blank blank. Well, planned unit development is also referred to as cluster zoning, meaning if you have a large piece of tract of land in the past, we used to have what's called buffer zone. So you will have residential zoning, commercial zoning, industrial zoning. And in between each zoning, you had what's called buffer zone. Well, if you remove the buffer zone, it's called cluster zoning. That simply put is, if you can imagine, a development where it is mixed use, multi-purpose use, multi-use rather than a single use. One area I usually use as an example would probably be, let's say, Brickell, the Brickell area, where you have a unit, a building can have multiple. So you can have one area for office space, and in the upper floors, you may have residential space, where on the ground floors, you may have boutiques or, let's say, retail in some sorts. Okay, so that's all that's referring to. So keep in mind, planned unit development is also referred to as cluster zoning, again, because there are no buffer zones. Let me take a moment to say thank you for supporting. And if you have not subscribed, it's very simple. Just hover over that picture at the bottom of your screen and click subscribe, and you can check the bell to be notified when I post new videos. Number 11, complete the sentence. A convenience store located in an area that has now been zoned for residential use only would be blank. So let's say that would require, would be a non-conforming use. So if you have a convenience store that is in an area that has been rezoned as residential, so it used to be commercial, now it's zoned for residential, well, we know that would require a non-conforming use. In other words, a variance, being grandfathered. Number 12, residential zoning restrictions are designated to regulate which of the following? Well, residential is all about the density or the number of units per acre. So density, that would be D. Density of the structure, in other words, how many units per acre. Number 13, what is the classification for economic activity that brings money into an area? Well, that would be the basic activity, the classification, the economic. So if you think of Florida, so for example, Miami-Dade County, Florida, we have a tourist-based economy or a service-based economy. So the economy activity that brings in money into the area is the basic economy. Number 14, the local planning agency or planning commission normally has the authority to approve which of the following? Well, the planning agency has the authority to approve the site plans. So the site plan, again, if you have a developer who wants to develop an area, that developer would provide the site plan to the planning authority or the planning commission, and there would be the ones who would authorize, who would grant the authorization for that development to move forward. Number 15, what would most likely be required to build a church in a residential neighborhood? Well, that would require a special use exception. Again, that is when you are requesting to deviate from the verbiage of the law or the ordinance or the zoning law. So special use, yes, this is not a residential property, but we want a special use exception to allow us to operate within that zoning. Number 16, which method might the county use to enforce building codes? Well, again, there's a slight difference here from zoning and building codes. Zoning, if you can imagine, zoning is what the government allows you to build on your property. Zoning is what the government allows you to build, whether it's commercial or residential. Whereas building codes is how you are required to build what is permissible to build. So if you're looking at building codes, well, one method that the county can enforce building codes is by requiring the certificate of occupancy, meaning before any human beings, before any person can occupy that space, the government may require a certificate of occupancy where the county comes in and inspect and make sure that that structure is safe for human habitation or human occupancy. That is all they're referring to. So if you look at method the county used to enforce building codes, well, they required people to seek a certificate of occupancy. Number 17, to determine the potential use of a vacant lot, which entity would you contact? Well, that would be the zoning department. To determine the use of a vacant lot, well, you would contact the zoning department. The zoning department will tell you whether or not this area is zoned for residential or commercial or industrial. That's simply all that's asking. Number 18, in case of a financial hardship due to a zoning requirement, for what should the homeowner apply? Well, in this case, the homeowner will apply for a variance. We discussed that at the very beginning. If the zoning is imposing a hardship. So let's say I had my liquor store, or I had a convenience store at a location, and that is my livelihood. That's how I support my family. Well, the law has changed. The zoning laws have changed, changing from commercial to residential. Well, if that's creating a hardship for my family, I can ask for a variance, provided that I didn't move into the zoning move into me. Number 19, what is the role of the local planning agency in matters concerning site planning, subdivision plat approval, and sign acceptability? Well, that is, again, if you remember, the local agency board or the commission, their purview, their authority is to make recommendation to the local government body regarding those matters. Number 20, what do zoning laws regulate? Well, by now you should have already known that zoning is what type of use you can make, what you can build there, what you can use the land for, versus building codes talk about how you build, what you're allowed to build, what you're allowed to use the land for. That is all I have for now. Stay tuned for the last part, which is part 20. That is going to be real estate math, which is 10% of the Florida real estate exam. And as always, please don't forget to subscribe, share, comment, and like. And I want to thank you for watching and your support. And I think we have just hit 500 subscribers. I am finishing the series. This is 19. Stay tuned for 20. It is coming up in the next couple of days. Thank you so much, and have a blessed and wonderful day. Bye.